Hi, and thank you for joining me recently in one of our speaking leadership presentations that I've given. I love helping people to connect. In fact, there are two things that really compel me to do what I do, and that is to help people be reconciled to one another and to accept responsibility for the things they do, the decisions they make, and even their inaction. In our recent time together, I would have taken you through one of our presentations on communication skills. And as promised, here's a copy of the slides that I mentioned I'd make available to you. With that extra bonus, I'm also going to run through it with you, just give you a little bit of narration around some of the more complex issues that we may or may not have covered during our session. Of course, when I speak live to audiences like you, I'm actually delivering from my heart and combining real moments, real stories, real case studies. And that's the joy and the benefit of having me present live to audiences. In this presentation that you're about to see now, this is the condensed theory base of the slides. It doesn't have all the extra bonuses that you get through in-person presentations. So I wanted to mentally prepare you for that as we go through the slides. There may be a few little snippets that I'll add here and there just to remind you of things you may have covered, including the story of the 50-cent piece. That might make an appearance. But for now, sit back, relax, maybe have a cup of tea, get yourself organised, and then prepare to run through this slide set with me. Maybe 20, 30 minutes, depending on how much detail we dive into. And of course, the option is always there for you to click the pause button, rest, reflect on what you've learned before starting again. So welcome. I'm Tarran Deane, Leadership Development Company owner of Corporate Cinderella. It's my pleasure to host this upcoming slideshow for you. Let's get started. I'll go into share screen so that you can actually take a look at the slides. So you'll see me moving here. And on your screen right now, you should see a couple of options. So we'll go into the share screen of the PowerPoint and you'll have the advantage of seeing me live at the top right-hand side of your screen. Might even move that just down here in the bottom corner, so that we're out of the way of text. So a reminder, for more information regarding this presentation or other details, you're welcome to visit tarrandeane.com and certainly share the love as it relates to any of our main services listed on the website. If, however, you want to share this slide set, I would ask you please to contact me for permission first, as it is my intellectual property and I may be mentioning resources that I retail under license and so have a very good stewardship of copyright. So always contact me first before you pass this slide set on to anyone else. So let's get going. So tarrandeane.com, again, you're welcome to go in and purchase one of my latest resources. The current one here is The Alphabet Principle, Your A to Z Guide to Being a Compelling Leader. Coming up next, though, we're going to be having a look at, let's see, here we go. Different organisations that I've worked with include Griffith University, Coaching Life Magazine, Professional Speakers Australia, the Queensland Government, particularly Department of Health, as it relates to integrated care for Australian elders, the Australian aviation industry, one of the apprenticeship areas, RILA, Rotary, and I've also done some work with BHP leaders in the area of speaking communication. Shared the stage with the United Nations Deputy Director General for the Office of Outer Space Affairs a few years ago in Malaysia. Just outstanding where communication can actually take you. Again, let's move forward so that if you wanted to recap or pass information on to people, you can learn here around how I presented with the Australian Institute of Management, 1,600 people, sit-down lunch in Brisbane, brilliant opportunity. And again, you never know where your speaking will take you. One of the things I love to do is get out on my bike, and so I'm often out riding through the hills of northern New South Wales. And you may recall during our session, I may have mentioned some of the things that biking has taught me, or indeed the way that we need to lean into situations and not avoid conflict. The book, as I mentioned, tarrandeane.com, available now for orders and purchase. So let's get underway. Communication, as you may know, is around sending information from one person to another. There's the sender and there's the recipient, there's the message in the middle, and then there's the all-important feedback that closes the loop. But sometimes it's a little bit more detailed than that. And when we shared our time together, I may have highlighted these 7 particular aspects, in particular meaning, why you do it. What is it that influences how confident you are, the clarity you have, understanding your worth and your values, and getting up on stage or sitting in a sales meeting or interviewing for a new career position. And again, really being certain that you are confident in your identity. You've set opportunity aside to go and learn and develop your value statement. And your value statement is the framework around which you make your decisions. You may recall, I think I may have mentioned it in our session around my own values. They spell the word car, pash. I know it's a little daggy, but do you remember my values? Courage, adventure, relationship, prosperity, accountability, spirit-led, and home front. There's 7 key things that I hold top of mind whenever I'm making decisions about the type of work I say yes to, the things I say no to, the people that I allow into my inner circle or into my broader work life, and even into my community, social acquaintances, and connections on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. There's a value set and a behavioural expectation I have of people when we engage together. And I believe that's fair. It's a way of implementing boundaries. And when you get clear on your values and your boundaries, then you'll have a real meaning to what you do. And that will enable you to go through these other areas here as I tick off market. That's who's your audience. So when you're speaking, who is your audience? Is it one-to-one? Is it one-to-many? Are you face-to-face with someone? Are you dealing on social media in a group, on a page setting, via video conferencing? They represent your market. Another word you might like to use is audience, or the receiver, who's at the other end getting your message. Also here, this is an interesting one, but it's often associated with a lot of fear that prevents people from speaking. In some instances, this whole issue of money, whether it's attached to you as an employee, i.e., can I speak up or will it impact my job? Can I speak up or may I get less hours? If you're an entrepreneur and you are setting out to market yourself, speaking up, how do you pitch yourself? How do you detach sufficiently and yet offer a service to others so that at the same time, you're not operating as a charity model yourself and giving away your intellectual property for free. Instead, you're placing real value on the knowledge and the experience and even your life story that you bring to market. So finance is involved there. And so giving yourself permission to be prosperous, to address the way you handle money, also influences the way you communicate. Because at the heart of it, it comes back to a sense of worth and whether or not you believe that you're worth listening to. And if you've backed yourself to develop your skills, what investments have you made into your own professional development that helps you become increasingly articulate, enables you to captivate an audience, or indeed to just build deeper connections one-on-one. These things are then supported through technique. That's your method. How do you like to engage? What are the things that you can use that will help you communicate your message more effectively? And again, that term message we'll unpack in a moment, but it's often intrinsically linked to the words and the stories you tell yourself about who you are and what it is that you bring to your market, how you step out in courage as opposed to fear, and then communicate your message in an effective way. And some of this is the mechanical or technique aspect of communicating. So we've gone from meaning to market, to money, to method, to mechanics. A lot of that is around how you hold yourself, your stage technique, your tone if you're on the phone, how you engage, even at a dinner table, out at a restaurant with friends, whether or not you're picking up your cell phone and you're talking on your mobile in front of other people mechanically, it's a wrong move. Excuse yourself, demonstrate etiquette and good manners, step away from the table, cut the call short and return to your gathering, because the people that you're meeting with, whether it's for a social event or a business event, they're still your market. And if you're face-to-face or on a call with them, they deserve your attention. The other parts of mechanics, of course, relate to where you place your feet, how you use your body language, how you can lean forward in a conversation and draw people out. So you might want to think of some of the key people that have inspired you, perhaps podcasters or video bloggers that you watch, brands that you're familiar with, people like Seth Godin, Richard Branson, commentators, even the guy on the morning Today show who does the finance reports. How did they deliver their message in a succinct way, mechanically having all the practical elements sorted out from PowerPoint slides? Even in this example where I'm sharing what could be a two-dimensional communication, it's simply a slide on a PowerPoint that you're watching through my website. I've transitioned that and it's now three-dimensional because I'm part of that presentation. And think about how you can use technology in a better way to support the mechanics of your communication. And that's some of the things that we cover when you work with me in an executive coaching or an entrepreneur or expert or emerging leader capacity. If you'd like to know more information about that, just stay with us right to the end of this presentation and you'll be able to see the contact details for working with me in that regard. So let's press on to message and momentum. Message is what I'm going to focus on in depth in the coming slides. So with this momentum piece, I'm going to address that once we've got through this bulk part. So let's continue on. If there are items that come up that you would like to address during the presentation that you're re-watching now, and you would like to follow it up with me, why not grab yourself some cardstock or a notepad, grab your favorite pen, just jot your details down, jot my contact details down. In fact, you can see them at the bottom of the screen. You can see tarrandeane.com. Click on the link there. That will take you through to info@tarrandeane.com, or give me a call on 0417 654305. Country code 61 if you're watching this from an international audience. So again, jot your points down, make sure you follow it up, let me know what you've thought, or jump online at LinkedIn and leave a recommendation if there's been aha moments that you've enjoyed. Again, just parking the information so that we can follow it up with you. You'll find that there'll be a lot of things that we would have covered in our real-time presentation together that just seemed overwhelming. In fact, there was a bunch of information gathered at the recent event where I've taken a number of responses from different people. And in fact, your group may have also written out your own. And their ideas that you're just parking that you'll be able to address and reflect on the content of the presentation and remind yourself of how you can do it differently, so that when the time comes, you simply hit the button metaphorically in your brain, you lower it down and you go, yes, that's right, Tarran said this, I need to remember to use it. This image that you're seeing on the screen now is actually of a car park in New York. I was there a couple of years ago and visiting a good friend of mine, the Australian voice of Siri, Karen Jacobson, also known as the GPS girl, phenomenal. And I went for a walk around the city and was just delighted to see this great image. And I knew I could use it to give expression to how you can sort out information in your own brain, park it until the time is right to pull it out and then execute on it. Because that can often be the challenge for you and your colleagues. If you've attended a presentation, you've heard great speakers, you've heard a range of information, you may have even taken a ton of notes. pace yourself in the days and weeks ahead, and go back and pull that stuff out of your mind, out of the shelf, out of that car park, and revisit it. Because to know and not do is to not know at all. You've now heard information from myself and other presenters perhaps, and indeed it's now your responsibility to process it, reflect on it, and determine what you can take forward in the next 90 days and perhaps even the next 12 months and even further. It's your responsibility. And we know that you are such an attentive participant that I know that there's going to be at least one thing that you can adopt that will help enhance the way you develop your confidence, the way you communicate with clarity, and build healthier, stronger, more profitable connections. Profitable in the sense that they're just good for your soul and good for business. And it all makes perfect sense. There's some of the things that we talked about in our presentation. Again, the 7 elements we've gone through: meaning, market, money, method, mechanics, and we're now going to dive into message and close it all off in a bow with momentum, with your next steps. One of the great orators was certainly this man, Abraham Lincoln. A great orator and revered by people because it was deemed that he actually saw people. And for yourself as a communicator, speaking leadership is around connecting. It's joining the dots, it's spelling it out for people, it's hitting the shift key and daring to polarize. And that's certainly something that Abraham Lincoln did. He wasn't liked by everyone, but he had the courage of his convictions. And when you communicate and you step into a new season of leadership, whatever history you have in the role, you will polarize people. And so I may have used this phrase with you, that it's none of your business what other people think of you. What's important is that you stand on your principles. And as Margaret Thatcher said, you'll either stand on those things or you won't stand at all. So be very clear on those values, because they'll inform the way that you do communicate and connect with others as you step into the future. I'm reminded also, as I would have shared, that collecting moments and daring to realize that it's not all about you. Even as you stand on your values, you are merely walking through time as a part of history. And on a recent trip to Washington and visiting the Holocaust Museum and stepping through this carriage, I came through from the far side that you see over here and walked through the darkened carriage, just as these people are doing, came out the other side. But as you step in, this is almost your season in life. You're stepping into it, and it's now your responsibility to maximize your talents, to eliminate fear, and embrace opportunity and understand what it is you say no to. There's a parable called Parable of the Talents, and it commences with, it doesn't matter what you have. That's the story of it, really. Whether you have 1, 10, or 100 talents, gifts, strengths, what matters is your faithfulness to maximize what you have in your hand, because your story does matter. And as I walked through this carriage from the far side into the darkness, it's almost as if time stood still. It's almost as if the voices of history, the silent moans, the quietness of uncertainty, reached out. And as I approached the exit area, I dared to reach out and ran my fingers over the smooth piece of timber near the doorway. And it was at that point that I felt really connected to the story of what took place, the injustice of years ago, of decades ago. And so when you're placing one foot in front of the other and you're preparing to go and speak or engage, you too will have people that have gone before you, and you have that responsibility not to shy away from using your voice, but to speak up, whether it's injustice on a grand scale or whether it's simply communicating change or a project or advocating for a need, whether it's negotiating for your own salary. You can be bold, and doing so will require you to do it with humility. Be bold and humble. Realize you're simply a chink in the chain. You're a step in the path, and someone else is going to need you to lead like you mean it and speak like you mean it, to give them the courage to do the same thing. There's a parable that says, all your life a student and a teacher be. Never for one moment think that you have it all together, but again, have a rightful understanding of your values and your place. And that place is that we all matter. Everyone matters and is seen. Just like these guys in Washington, they're known as the Red Caps. It takes a particular type of courage to get out there and serve, but I would encourage you and indeed your colleagues to consider shared experiences. How can you get out and serve? These folks often receive a tip as part of their wage. It's merely a contribution to their volunteer service. So while I've used the word wage, it is a way that they make money. Many people in the States, in the United States, will volunteer, and they'll be guides. And in Australia, we'll have major events, sporting events, things like Commonwealth Games, Olympics, car racing, professional cycling, yachting, equestrian events, and more. Seek to serve at home and abroad, whatever country you live in, and count the experience as a way of gathering memories, that you're serving one another, but you're gathering memories as well. And this is where I want to take you into some meaty stuff. Can I do that? About being reasonable. So being reasonable, this comes into this whole principle of communication. So I'm going to use some material I have here. So this is the cardboard I mentioned earlier. So just off to one side, as you read through this piece, I'm going to just write that model of communication down again. And given it's recording, the text should be the right way around, as opposed to when you do Facebook Live or live broadcasting, the text is back the front. So let's get this up for you. So have you read that yet, about being reasonable? This is a fabulous drawing. And if I didn't do this at your presentation, this is a great way of just seeing the communication model in its simplest form. And this also is imperative that you grasp this, particularly if communicating provides opportunity for you to present at conferences or events, or to introduce people at local networking events, etc. So here's the base model that we have. So communication starts with the sender, with a message to share for a recipient. And the way that you clarify understanding is you ask then, as the sender, what did you get from that? And you then receive feedback that confirms understanding. But often things get in the way. And so the white noise of life, let's just symbolize that here. Nice scratchy sound for you, isn't it? I've given you a couple of examples here. White noise is what prevents us in the middle of our communication of being understood. It's often described as distractions. So a couple of distractions might be, as I look over the top, the white noise could be Facebook or social engagement. It could merely be busyness. So this is where the responsibility is on you as a communicator, to really look at how you're approaching information and as a receiver, how you're processing information. So early on, we were talking about meaning and method and mechanics. Now this part that I'm about to do a deep dive into relates to critical thinking. It's an extract from one of the modules that I deliver for corporates and large not-for-profits. Critical thinking is something that, because of all this white noise in here, that typically listeners have not been doing very well. Receivers have not been doing very well. The risk with social media is that only this piece happens here when you post to your timeline. When you're tagging someone on your timeline on social, you're actually tagging a receiver. Otherwise, what you're doing is basically just indulging yourself in talking and sending a message out there. Just a message, and you're wondering why no one's engaging, because you haven't nominated a receiver. Or perhaps you haven't actually asked for feedback. So when you're communicating using social things, that's when you actually need to have a call to action, which is another element of what we do through online leadership. But what I'm covering here, just in this piece here, is if you are the receiver in this speaking leadership model, communication, you have a responsibility, if you do not understand, not to make judgments. If you're the sender and you are not understood, it is not about making judgments. It's about understanding the way that your brain works so that you dare to go in and ask questions. The all-important feedback is imperative, particularly when there is so much white noise competing for your attention. So as you do this, let's have a look at what it means to be reason able. And that's to engage that part of your brain that exercises reason. If you want to be a communicator that is a role model, you need to demonstrate reasonableness. You need to be reason able. You need to be reason fit. And how you can think about this is you can make deductions. You may have heard the phrase, I deduce. I think it was Sherlock Holmes. I deduce Watson, perhaps, maybe somebody else. But the theory exists that deductive thinking is top down. Top down. So just think deductive, D for down. Thinking that starts with a theory that goes, she's not listening, that means she's not interested. I haven't heard back from her, therefore she's not interested. That is a plain example of deductive reasoning, and it's also a risk because it's assumption based in many respects. Deductive thinking uses a theory, hypothesis. She's not interested because last time she didn't answer, she didn't come. So therefore, she's not attending my event. Okay, I'm marking her down as not attending. And again, that's making assumptions because we don't know the white noise that's going on here, not only for you as the sender, but if the shoe is on the other foot, for you as the receiver. We need to deal with these assumptions here, and both parties need to think in a critical fashion. If you're speaking on stage, it's really hard to cut through this white noise unless you understand how these people are thinking and make it your business to be a very, very good observer, that you test assumptions, that you test theories, that you identify barriers before people actually get immersed into your content. That way you're better able to test whether or not your message, your content is on message or answering the brief that you needed to draft your presentation to, or your desired meeting outcome. So let's have a look here. That was deductive. Now let's have a look at inductive. So let's go back here a sec. Deductive starts at the top of the trees. Inductive is starting from the ground and looking up. You're making an observation. You're looking for a pattern. You're developing a tentative hypothesis and developing a theory. So you're starting with an observation. She doesn't seem to be rushing. I've noticed this happen a lot in the office. I don't think she places much value on getting to meetings on time. So my theory is she's not interested in meetings. Can you see how that simple action has actually used observation to form a theory, which all a theory is an opinion based on observation. All deductive reasoning is theory, starting out with a theory, looking for an observation that fits that theory. So you're starting with an assumption that goes, I don't think she likes meetings. I wonder if she likes meetings. I don't think she likes meetings. Actually, and then you make the observation, she didn't arrive on time at the last meeting. Yes, she doesn't like meetings. You can see how confusion occurs and misunderstandings and judgments. And it's not using one of these elements or the other. It's just being brain smart, that you think right, that you are humble enough to look at it from the different angles and perceptions of others. And then you ensure that you're using clarifying phrases here when you're giving or receiving feedback. So some of the techniques, ensure that you clarify, that you question. Another technique is to paraphrase. Some of you may already know that core element of communication, which is if someone has said something to you, you repeat it back almost in their words, but with a slight twist, which is, I'm not going to be able to make it for 15 minutes, says the sender. I'm the receiver, the listener, and I would say, so I'm hearing you say that you're not able to make it for 15 minutes. Is that right? Yes. Clarifying, paraphrase. So you're going to be 15 minutes late, for example. So interesting, isn't it? Be reasonable. Deductive starts from the top down with a theory. Inductive starts with an observation to arrive at a theory. I know, I love this stuff. Then it's part of the reasonable test. It's about looking at what is the probability. If someone was actually coming to a meeting and they're driving an hour to get there, or they're dependent on public transport, such is the case here, then it's quite possible that as part of that process, the probability of traffic delays could impact their punctuality to get to their meeting. So as they're seeking to arrive at their meeting, there's a likelihood that they may be late. So is it true? Is it not? Let's test it. Could that be the reason why Tarran's 15 minutes late to the meetings? Is the probability because of inconsistency on the motorway? And no matter if you leave 2 hours early, there's a chance there'll be a crash and you'll still be late. So there's a probability. So testing that assumption is really important. Is it true? Is it likely to happen? Is there another way for us to engage or communicate more effectively? The other aspect of this is not being so hung up in terms of the way that we process information. In this case, the test of reasonableness is the linear ordering. And that might simply be, for some, there may be a more structured as opposed to a creative way of processing information. Could be more belief-based as opposed to creative. And you look at this example of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, we could not have the linear structure without the supporting curves. So the invitation here, as we spell it out, is with our communication, you need to engage a whole range of different methods to reach out and have your message heard. It's not all black and white, or in this case, black and yellow. Rather, there are different ways of getting the message across. And if you've done training in the areas of training and assessment, for example, you will have an understanding of the different ways that people learn. So in their method of learning, and jotting this point down for you, we have people that hear information, auditory. We have those that are tactile, that like to feel it, and they like to get the message across from you in such a way that you've taken them on a journey. You'll remember I spoke about running my hand on that piece of wood as I came out of the carriage from the museum in Washington. So that appeals to both the auditory and the tactile. And then we have people that are visual learners. They like to see things written down, like you're seeing this slide here. And then we have the kinesthetic learners, and they like to, just spelled it wrong, they like to touch. Tactile, auditory, visual, and kinesthetic, different ways that we like to process information. And it's vital that as you are speaking, that you're using these elements as part of your thinking process with how you prepare mentally to deliver either a panel presentation at a conference, deliver a white paper, stand up at university, introduce a colleague as an MC at a board meeting or a function, a networking event, or whether you're taking the stage in your own right in keynote speaking. There is much to be said about critical thinking and looking at the design elements and going, communicating the message in an orderly fashion that is both linear but also creative to engage with those different learning styles. This makes sense. And then being mentally prepared also for if this, then what? A contingency, what happens? What happens if the traffic suddenly impacts and we're not able to engage? What if you're not able to get to that meeting on time? What is your alternative? So being prepared mentally, ensuring that and physically, being confident that at all times you're dressed in a way that gives you freedom of movement, that you are able to be part of a solution, be agile if you have to make decisions on the go, and be ready, whether it's to give a video report, a video meeting, do a radio interview, whatever it might need to be. It's up to you then to stay abreast of technologies, to stay firmly ahead of the curve when it comes to innovation, futurist trends, because these things will enhance the way you communicate. And if you don't know about them, then you may not have the opportunity to communicate as effectively as you would like. So being reasonable is about deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, looking at linear thinking, and then of course contingency or risk. These things matter because heaven knows, 4 horsemen of the modern apocalypse for different people. First world problems, no Wi-Fi, intermittent signals, low battery, and so on. Being ready online and offline, ensuring that your persona as a communicator is the same online and offline. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to reveal your deep, dark secrets, or that you need to be overly intimate with your audience in context of the things you share with mates or friends at a deeper level that have a shared history with you. That's your business. That's their business. It's not your audience's business unless you have permission to share it. So be a respecter of privacy. Don't sweat this stuff, you know, the on-off. People are more forgiving than you realize. And that's the beauty of communicating. If you are authentic, if people do know what you stand for, if your values are clear, they want you to succeed. And there's a bunch of this stuff that's also covered in the alphabet principle. So jump online, grab your copy. This is merely the outside draft cover for communication. Grab a copy of it and share it with your colleagues and your friends so that you can be far more comfortable in your skin and ready for the next season of innovation and growth. It's imperative that you are. And again, coming back to Abraham Lincoln, I now introduce Socrates. In fact, it was the Socratic method that says, follow the argument to where it leads, for it is the foundation of inquiry. Ensuring you have a commitment to curiosity, that you are ready to explore new ways of thinking, that you don't know it all, is imperative as you step forward in your leadership role. Be curious, research, consult, and know that when you are entrusted as a decision-making leader, that consultation does not abdicate decision-making. Your decisions may or may not be liked, and as with Abraham Lincoln, you may polarize others, and you need to be okay with that. It's time for you to consolidate your learnings, prepare for the next 5, 10, 15 years, stay abreast of trends and futurist technologies that are emerging, always with the intent of building stronger human connections. In fact, it's the soft skills that are thought to be the most important elements that we need to develop and hold on to moving forward. Critical thinking skills, communication like this. And wouldn't it be amazing if we could all just get on and lead like we mean it? I know, it'd be outstanding. The other aspects for being an effective role model, the first was responsibility through reasonableness, being reasonable and looking at how you then use those thinking elements. Deductive, inductive. Do you remember the next one? Deductive, inductive. You ready? You ready? Here we go. Deductive, inductive, probability. What's the likelihood of those assumptions being real? You need to test it. How you think and then how you communicate needs to be in both a linear and a creative manner, always showing the orderly connection and relationship between ideas and thoughts and communication models. And also being mindful around risks. What happens if? Being ready in and out of season, wherever you're connected. Being curious. So that was all under reasonableness. And now it's about being open-minded, which is the perfect companion to curiosity. Open-minded, inquire, be curious, see the person. Look, see the person, see me, see the person, see you. Don't see interruptions as tiresome. Rather, look at them in the context of how you can communicate better your boundaries. Look at them in terms of what are the things that you may be missing. And thirdly, understanding the context of the interruption and being ready to adapt in an agile world where you need to respond in real time to emerging or emergency situations. So being able to determine the difference will require you to have a good grasp of this critical thinking model. Being reasonable, being open-minded, analysing things in a really effective way, as you see here, analysing things, looking at every person and relationship as a thing of great value. Being prepared to be inquisitive and curious, as Socrates said. Recognising that change is going to be massive over the next 5, 20 years. We've had more growth, more rapid expansion in technological fields in the last 10 years alone. This map that this slide that I prepared is also available for you through the change slide. So change, let's see where I've put that for you, tarrandeane.com/change slide. and you should be able to just click in there to have it emailed to you for automatic download. You'll notice the reference here to my now superseded website, Corporate Cinderella. So our company is Corporate Cinderella Leadership Development Company, and we grew so much we needed a bigger home, so it's all now under tarrandeane.com. And again, the slide reference for you to download that is tarrandeane.com/change slide, just so you can examine the real effect on individuals' minds and bodies, and then how we overcome that. This is outstanding, and I love speaking on this subject because we're seeing an increasing amount of tethering happening to technology devices, particularly with millennials and centennials, and now also with Gen X and Gen X, Gen Y, and baby boomers. Learning to implement sound boundaries is a really healthy thing to do, and there's a whole range of resources out there. I highly recommend Townsend and McLeod when it talks about boundaries at work, boundaries in relationships, boundaries in marriage, boundaries with kids. And boundaries is really about knowing where I finish and you begin. And when we're dealing with change in workplaces, it's imperative that we also use those boundaries with each other, and we use our voice to speak up and give expression to the concerns we may have about the also increasing level of burnout that's taking place through adrenal fatigue, depleted cortisol levels because people aren't sleeping well, depleted vitamin B and vitamin D levels. Even in Australia, Australia has one of the highest levels of vitamin D deficiencies because people aren't getting outdoors as much as they would Monday to Friday, as much as they used to. And so all this stuff impacts your thinking. If you'd like a copy of this change slide, tarrandeane.com/change slide. And indeed, if you'd like to talk further with your boss about me coming along and speaking on this subject, happy for you to reach out, info@tarrandeane.com. I mentioned earlier I was in New York visiting a good friend of mine. You'll see here my girlfriend Karen. She's also known as the Australian voice of Siri, but was first and foremost the voice of Karen, the GPS girl. And it's been astounding just for both of us. Two women from country towns. Karen was originally from Mackay. I was from Tamworth in country New South Wales, Australia. And here we are using our voices to communicate in different ways. And so it is with you. Never despise the days of small beginnings. We don't have it all together. We're works in progress. We respect and honour the platform, and that would be a key for you. When you are given the opportunity to lead, when you are given the opportunity to communicate with others, respect the platform you have, realizing that you are, as we mentioned earlier, a chink in the chain, or perhaps even simply one of the key letters of leadership in your team. It is about a great language of leadership, and we can't form words without everybody else. So honor the connections, gather memories, share the love, and be prepared to untangle things when it all gets a bit much. And then realize incredibly that it is the sum of all the little things that are shaping you to be the leader you are today. I shared Amal's story, and if you were in the audience, you would have heard that. If you would like to know more about Amal's story, if you're watching this through a recording from a friend or a colleague, then you need to contact me, because this is a very powerful story around connection, being seen. It's said, there's a book that I have, I'm just looking at my bookshelf here, I may still have it in my travel bag from one of my events, and it's called Many People Communicate, Few Connect. My invitation to you is connect, connect. This isn't about race or creed, this is about humanity. Connect with the people in your audience, the people in your workplace, the woman behind the counter, the man who services your car. Connect. Let people know they're seen. And maybe I'll tell you a little bit more about Amal's story on another day. Here we go. that then brings us to our concluding piece around communicating more effectively. And that was around how you design your message in a way that builds relationship with your audience. So do you remember we talked about, let's have a sneak peek here. Let's see if I can grab that for you. Actually, let me just write it for you. What I was talking to you about in the beginning with all our circles, do you remember those? We had our meaning, we had our market, we had mechanics, we had our method, and now we've had our message. And this is about how you can maintain momentum. Grab a copy of the Alphabet Principle, your A to Z guide to being a compelling leader. It will help you in your real life at work. It crosses the divide between theory and execution. It provides you with 26 real-time checklists contained within this book. It also gives you a bonus 26-week virtual resource which covers off on another 52 chapters of the Alphabet Principle. We didn't want to put it all into the book because we know that for momentum to truly happen, it is about the consistent change and application over an extended period of time. And so we're making all that available to you through the Alphabet Principle, your A to Z guide to being a compelling leader. Simply log on to tarrandeane.com/alphabet to purchase your copy. They've been published in 2017 with the expected publishing date early to mid-March 2017, which is super exciting. So grab your autographed copy if you're viewing this now prior to March. They'll come out through pre-orders. If you're purchasing online, they will be dispatched via a print on demand from March 13th. If you're purchasing at a conference, I'm happy to sign those for you. And if you're looking to do a bulk order for your business, your school, your organisation, or even for your event, with sufficient notice, I can be sure to set time aside and personally autograph those for you. So I'd look forward to putting some of those in your hands. In the meantime, what we've produced for pre-orders that are coming through in early 2017 or for conferences that I'm speaking at is we're putting into your hands just a short letter from me, just confirming what's contained within the book itself, and also the different things that you can do so that you can speak better, that you can care enough to confront and not shy away from conflict, that you'll be able to be a role model who practices reason, who is open-minded, who analyzes and uses logical, linear thinking that is both straight and curved for the different ways that adults like to learn, taking on board the different techniques of auditory, visual, tactile, and kinesthetic learning styles. So I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to send me a note, info@tarrandeane.com. In the subject line, put down the name of this presentation, which is Speaking Leadership - Communication, or simply reach out and schedule a complimentary 30-minute call. Places are limited for those, and that's because I do a lot of traveling as a keynote speaker, and I'm working for various companies around Australia, Southeast Asia, New Zealand, and stepping into the US market. My desire is to see you rise up in your capacity as a leader, to in fact think right, act smart, lead well, and live your life with great purpose and value. You can schedule those 30-minute calls by simply logging onto your smartphone, going to tarrandeane.com, and on the home screen, you'll see the book in now for a complimentary call. If you're viewing it from your laptop, simply move your mouse across the main screen and you'll see the opportunity there to schedule a 30-minute discovery call. It's been a pleasure having you in our audience. I'm ever so honoured that your conference organiser has reached out and made it possible for us to meet, whether it's virtually or face-to-face. And the offer is extended to you as well to call and connect. But remember, the heart of all this is around you taking back these learnings into your environment. So whether you are an executive, an entrepreneur, an expert who speaks, or an emerging leader. Do life together with the people that matter most to you. Grow your teams. Don't leave anyone behind. Share the load. Because ultimately, speaking is about connecting. That's what matters. Relationships and responsibility. Get fit to lead. Spell it out. Grab your copy of the Alphabet Principle today. I'm Tarran Deane. It's been my pleasure to serve you through this presentation. I look forward to meeting you again soon. Maintain momentum. Grab a copy of the Alphabet Principle today, and you've got my support for the next 12 months. Bye for now. Cheers.